Hey, thank you guys for tuning in with me today. So I'm going to answer the question you guys asked me on many different videos in the comment section. So the question is, where do I reside and what grows on my end? And I try to answer that in every video, but I don't know what videos I've said it on and which ones I haven't. So I'm in Grow Zone 5B, okay? Now, Grow Zone 5B, you've got Chicago, you've got some of Ohio, you've got where I am, Indianapolis, Indiana, which is where I reside. And, you know, we have a shorter growing season than a lot of you out there, but we still can do a lot, especially as you can see here, maybe not. I've got many different greenhouses, so I have no excuses to grow. I grow indoors, I grow in the garage, I grow in this greenhouse, I grow on the greenhouse on the side. So although we get super cold temperatures, I still manage to grow year round no matter what's going on, okay? Now, when I started gardening, I was in actually Grow Zone 7A. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of background. I was born in Chicago, Illinois. I was born and raised there. I was there till I was 18. Okay. So from 18 to 32, I resided in Nashville, Tennessee, and I stayed there for 14 years, which is where I started to learn how to grow. Okay, now there was a little bit of transition going from Grow Zone 7A to 5B, but it wasn't too bad. All right, now when I was in 7A, this is where I learned how to grow. And while I was in Nashville, we had some mild winters and then we had some warm winters. So you just never know which way it was gonna go. Now where I am now, we know we're gonna get cold winters, but I was infatuated with corn. You know, if you guys know what I-65 is, it's an interstate that runs north and south. So it can take you from Indiana all the way through, I want to say, the bottom of Tennessee, and then it'll branch off into, I don't know, I don't know. I can't remember where they branch off. I think it's just below Chattanooga, Tennessee. So that's kind of where 65 branches off. So it runs from Indiana to Tennessee. And while I was in 7A, like I said, I was infatuated with corn. So every time I would drive anywhere in the Midwest, whether we're talking Illinois, Minnesota, Ohio, Indiana, you're going to see corn. And so I was always infatuated with corn, how tall it can grow. And that was the first thing I grew on my balcony when I was about 20 years old. Okay. And so with that first garden I grew on the balcony of my apartment, I also grew tomato. What else did I grow? I grew green beans. I grew peas. I grew peppers. So those were the four bit of produce that I grew, and everything turned out to be successful. And so I would continue to grow, you know, over the years and branch off to different things. And I've learned a lot. I'm still learning now. In fact, spinach was one of the things that I wasn't successful growing until I moved here in Grow Zone 5B, okay? And obviously it's about timing and it's about climate, right? Some of you may have the climate to grow it, some of you may not. And then you learn the tricks of, you know, generating the seeds in the refrigerator. But where I am now, I don't have to do that because it gets cool enough to where the seeds will just generate themselves, right? So that's a little bit about you know, me and spinach. But overall, where I am, we pretty much can grow anything. My tropical plants, obviously I can only leave them out for maybe 4 or 5 months out of the year, depending on when that frost is gonna come. This year we brought the bananas out and the other tropical plants and trees out in May. because the last frost date I think was, I don't know, it was in May sometime, and I actually brought the plants in, I think in October. So we had about a 5-month spree of the tropical plants and trees kind of hanging out in the garden outdoors. Now everything's indoor or, you know, in the greenhouse. What else? Grow Zone 5B is, it can be rough. You know, I'm not gonna sit up here and say that everything is peachy cream. But the thing about where I live is it can be one of the hottest places to live, but also one of the coldest places at the same time. So we're on both ends of the extreme. Rather, we're talking blazing hot temperatures or extremely cold temperatures, and there's rarely any in between. I mean, we have spots here and there of, you know, like let's say between 55 and 70, right? That would be kind of in between, but usually we're on one end of the spectrum. Rather, it's going to be 90 or negative 15. You just never know what you're going to get, right? So, you know, growing in 5B, you just got to adjust. You can't have any excuses, and you got to be prepared. You got to get your greenhouses up. You got to get your plastic together. You got to get your areas in the house where you have your grow lights. So for me, I usually have my grow lights in the garage or one of our bonus rooms that we have in the house here, and I just continue to grow. You know, sometimes our plants get decimated by different plants. Sometimes it's the weather, sometimes it's the wind that'll tear everything up. You know, being in the Midwest with tornadoes, it's just so much that you have to deal with. The thing about the greenhouses here, let's say spring, right? Spring, you're dealing with fluctuating temperatures. 1 minute is hot, 1 minute is cold, then it's raining. Next thing you know, you may have mold or mildew, that may have an outbreak on some of the produce that you're growing, right? So all year long, there's something that you have to deal with, but then you learn to adjust. You know what's coming, and you learn from it, and you work around it, right? So I tell you guys about the collard greens, right? With the collards, I have to get them out here early. And when I mean early, I mean I'm growing them in December, January. By the end of February, I want to get them outdoors because I want to grow them and I want them to mature before the pests start to get bad, right? Same thing with my collards, same thing with my kale, same thing with my other brassicas like your broccolis, right? So we want to get them out here and get mature before the pests start to really come in, like in June, right? So you learn to just adapt, and eventually I think we'll probably get somewhere warmer, but obviously that's going to come with different pests too. All right, so no matter where you are, you're gonna have to deal with something. And now the last house that we actually lived in, we had raccoons really bad. Where I am now, we have chipmunks bad, but I've unleashed the cats out here, and I haven't seen one chipmunk since we've released them out. Okay, so cats are really good in the garden. Set them up an area where they can eat, drink their own water, do their thing as far as going to the bathroom, and they'll protect what you got out here. Okay, so you got to get them trained up. I've been working with mine and have them trained to where they don't mess with anything in the garden besides pests. That's the only thing they deal with. So they're dealing with snakes, they're dealing with moles, mice, squirrels, rabbits. They protect our garden from almost everything. And the thing for me is we're a family of 5 right now, and we've got our 6th kid on the way. And so I don't want to take the chance of playing around and, getting these different pesticides and all that, which is cool. But I don't have time for that. I got too many people in my family to take risks like that. Okay, so that's why we have the cats. And weekly they leave a gift for us right on the patio right here, showing us what they've been doing in the garden, right? So again, guys, the cats, man, I know a lot of you don't like them, a lot of you don't want to deal with them, and some of you may even be allergic to them, but they do a lot of good things in the garden. Okay, I'm gonna tell you a story that kind of, well, it's not really a story, but I'm gonna tell you what really got me intrigued as well as far as gardening and farming. So from time to time, when I lived in Tennessee, I would go out to the country and help families with their farms. So whether we're talking moving a herd of cow to one end of the property to the other, helping out with the chickens, goats, whatever the case may be. So there was a old man, I'm not gonna say his name, he's no longer with us, but he was 98 years old. And on the farm, he was out working everybody at 98 years old. And I'm like, man, if this was what was keeping this guy going all these years, not being sick, being healthy, growing his own food, having his own garden, remaining in the same property for 80 years, getting out here and getting to work out in this garden, out on the farm. And so for me, that was an eye-opening experience, and I know that he wouldn't have lived that long had he not taken care of himself with his exercise, by being busy on the farm and his garden, as well as eating the food that he grew. Right? So for me, that was an eye-opening experience. And I pretty much vowed to myself that I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to eat my own food. I'm going to stay busy, get my exercise in on whatever property it is that I live on, and just keep moving. Right? So that's one of the things that I learned from him. Now, in addition to that, there were other older people, in that county that were in their 80s as well, and they were in the same condition. And for me, it's like, if they can do this at 80, 90, almost 100 years old, why can't I do it now? It really made me think that, the way that I had been living all those years, it just wasn't the right way for me. Now, I'm not knocking anybody and how they live, but once you get to see the self-sufficiency from our elders, and them not having chronic illnesses or acute issues or whatever the case may be, you begin to look at life differently, and it makes you want to adjust and live a different life. So that's another reason why I decide, to live the way I do, grow my own food, always having food on hand for family, my wife, my kids. And, we rarely even go to the grocery store for produce. I mean, right now we got carrots and onions popping up everywhere, right? And it's all about being self-sufficient, especially when you got a big family. So that's it. That's all I want to talk about with you guys. Just wanted to talk to you, let you guys know what grows on I'm in, what my background is, and ultimately, where I want to lead my family and eating right, so that's it, guys. I know I've been rambling, but I'm out.